Caedrel, the biggest English language core streamer in League of Legends, has core streamed the Esports World Cup, aka EWC, this week, and it has caused a massive drama bomb because, or I would say largely due to either public perception on who people thought he was and what he stood for, or actually people who've actually dug up some past instances of his behaviour, words and deeds that suggested he was either potentially anti the event or incredibly sceptical of the event, and quite frankly, Saudi treatment of potentially gays, women, minorities in general, and what they're doing in esports. Also, I'll just put this out there. The reason why I say potentially the perception that the public had of him is I do think Caedrel, because he's enormously popular and he's on the internet and he's in League of Legends and esports, I think he actually probably does have, maybe more than he realised, a lot of left-wing or woke or LGBTQ fans. I would guess he has quite a lot. I mean, seems like the most popular guy. Plus, isn't his whole brand generally being super amiable and almost anyone could really like his stream? That's kind of what made him number one for me. So first things first, I actually want to address why I'm making this video. Not just why I'm making it, but why I am making this video. Because, let's be real, nobody else is making a video on this topic. Like, I look around and there's all these famous people and streamers, by the way, who love on their stream to react to all drama, Reddit threads, other people's streams, come back with it, people are like fueling it. But here's the thing. As far as I can tell, the criticisms of Caedrel on this topic is just fans or industry people, but it's just people on Twitter, Reddit, or in Twitch chat. I haven't seen people making videos. I haven't seen people making React content. Everyone's been fairly quiet about what he said. Even a lot of people just had their say originally. By the way, so did I. I had my say on some of the insight, but at the time, I actually sort of came down the other camp. I sort of said, I don't really have a problem with it. You know, I don't think he's ever said anything that was like trying to flex politics and stuff like that. I was actually wrong. When I looked into it, he's actually deleted some stuff, and he's just... I'll just say he's outright lied. He's just said that he hasn't said things before and that he's never said anything politically. He just uses Twitter for League of Legends. And it's just not true. So I've actually changed course on that one. And some of the insight, I was sort of like, why is everyone hating on Caedrel? Like, you know, stick to people who've actually flexed the Neon thing in the past, or Riot Games, or something like that. Or people who say that, you know, gay rights are very important to them, but then now they're either in Saudi, or they're working with them, or their team's involved. I'd say they're the people you track. I have to say now, sorry, Caedrel actually has to be lumped in with them again, as we'll get into. And the reason why I think, by the way, you haven't seen anyone make video content or other streamers react is not just that Caedrel's massive. I wouldn't be cynical like that. I think it's that everyone likes Caedrel. By the way, I like Caedrel. Now, you'll find out in this video, maybe I like him a bit less this year, but actually... in general, I've generally found him both to be excellent at his job and I think a very interesting character. And quite frankly, I have found him to be very amiable. I've even had some very positive, I've had some good, how about this? I've had some good or constructive backs and forth with him over the years that actually would, put it this way, before this year, I would have vouched for this guy. I actually thought he was a very legit guy. I wouldn't have done that thing other people do of like, oh, now he's a giant streamer. Like, nah, fuck that guy. You forgot who you are and you sold out. Like that, I wouldn't have ever done that angle. But I'll tell you what, I do have my own history with Caedrel, which I should address at the outset because I like to put the disclaimer out there because this is a motivating factor for making this video. So first things first, I have had Caedrel on my content quite a lot. One thing people might not know, I think this will lead into why later he's still done some content stuff with me in the latter years, which might shock people because I'm a much smaller creator. I'm not as relevant as him, and he's the top dog, isn't he? He can kind of pick and choose where he goes. So why would he still do stuff with me? Well, I'll tell you why. I think it was because, as you've heard him talk about with Dom, I think it was to reciprocate the platforming I gave of him. The fact that I went out of my way to make him a figure and help put him on, as they say in the hip-hop community. I'll never say I made him. I'll never say it was just because of me, or he wouldn't have made it without me. Not at all. That's not my vibe at all. I've never said that about people like Thorin either, or even pro players that I've helped get into teams or have bigger careers. But I do think in the early days, when he was a nobody, as I'm about to show you, I think I did go out of my way to bring him to sort of the fan consciousness, and especially my fans, by the way. So one of the first instances of me even getting to know this guy at all was back when he was a pro, on the show Narrative Wake, which was my talk show with Kelsey Moser, fabulous analyst, just someone I don't work with anymore. I think it was actually even her who suggested him as a guest. So we had Cold, formerly Trashy there. And I think maybe he was even in Origin at the time. What year is this? 2018. August 28th, 2018. And I think around this time, off the top of my head, this might even be when Caedrel's already played, maybe in H2K when Kelsey was the coach or something. I'd have to go and look up the years. But basically, I think she was the one who recommended him to you. I think at the time she said something like, let's get this guy, like he's smart or he can talk, one of the two. Because even though he was nowhere close to a super famous LEC player, he wasn't even vaguely a star in any of his teams, and he wasn't some big personality at the time or a big streamer, he was someone where if someone tells me, oh, this person might not be famous, but they might be a good convo, or they have some good insights, in this case, maybe to mid lane, and at one point he swapped to jungle, or he's even quite smart for a jungler and he can sort of calm in the game well. If behind the scenes I know that, then it doesn't matter if you're actually that good in the game. I might bring you on a show. So in this case, I had him as a guest on Narrative Wake. Then I did my Elitist United show in 2019 to 2020 with Veteran, who was obviously someone whose entire brand was about being in Europe and EWC/LEC at this point in time. It was the first year of LEC. And this show was just an LEC talk show or European talk show. So at this time, I would guess again, maybe this was even Veteran who suggested him. We had Veteran. We've got Memento, similar type of a person, by the way, jungler, quite a good person to talk about the game. He's now a coach in G2, if people don't know. We got Caedrel on this show, that's in February of 2019. This is way before he's years from being a famous streamer, or even on the LEC as like an analyst and commentator at this time, as far as I know. Then we had him on episode 19, which was in July of that year. He was on with Mystiques, who, if you remember, was that Polish support player who used to play for Rogue. Maybe it was XL, might even been both at certain points of time. Then, years later, in 2020, he was still a pro player at this time, but we had him on Summoning Insight, me and Monty. By the way, look at the views on these shows. These shows are all like 20, 30k view, that sort of number. So at the time, we were in the case of my channel, we were the bigger platform, choosing him to feature to our audience and show off. And hopefully, in doing these shows, you sort of bring them up to speed on sort of like the style of how to talk about the game and what people are interested in, how to address hot takes. Again, I would never claim I made someone like him, but I do think I played an early role as one of the people helping to sort of, I always say, to make people palatable to my audience, because I have a mixture of a casual audience and then the hardcore audience. And I do think if I say fuck someone, a lot of my fans might think, yeah, fuck that person. But I do think if I go, hey, give this guy a chance, actually, maybe there's more there, or I think there's some depth behind. I think once you get to know this person, you'll be into him. I think I've done that with LS when people thought he was just some guy from Hearthstone and StarCraft who was toxic and just blah, blah, blah. And at the time, he wasn't a massive streamer. I think I've done it with quite a few people in my career, Veteran himself. So I had him on Summoning Insight. And then as a result, one thing I always thought was quite cool about Caedrel, actually, is I do think he actually reciprocated what I potentially maybe have done for him, or the attitude, or let's say camaraderie I showed to him in the early days when he was a nobody. When he was massive, I mean, look here. In February of 2023, I did 2-part reflections with him. I got very good views. I thought, by the way, I think it's one of the better reflections I've done in the latter days. He had some really honest answers. He told some awesome story. He told an amazing story about a player getting raged and drinking an energy drink or something. He had some really interesting stuff there. It's a 2-parter. This was only in 2023. He's already a massive streamer at this point in time. So I always thought, what a cool guy, eh? Wow, that's kind of cool that he would reciprocate. And when he's the bigger person, still work with me, still do content with me. That's kind of cool, right? In that case, in that sense, by the way, I actually think he's quite similar to LS, because there's another thing with LS. LS long ago overtook me in terms of like being a massive person in League of Legends, a giant streamer, and much like Caedrel and Dom, a guy who's made many millions a year. By the way, all of them were people I've worked with and had a good relationship with for years, I hope, and have featured in my content, and they've all... Now, look, it's not just because they're nice to people who helped them the rise up. It's also because you might not get this because, again, you weren't there if you were a newbie fan or you're a young person who doesn't understand how status works. I'm sorry, I'm an industry legend. I am. I've worked in this industry for 24 years. A lot of these people even knew me either from League before they even became pros or became famous, or from StarCraft in the case of people like LS, or I'm sure some of them even knew me from Counter-Strike way back in the day. So I've been around such a long time. I have status with these people. And then I've also tried to help people I think are legit and put them on. And a lot of them that are the legit ones have kind of paid that back. Certain people I won't mention have been dicks since then. I haven't done that or whatever. That's just the nature of both fame, the industry, people's egos, etc. But I would say these people, and Caedrel is one of them, has been pretty legit all in all. And I would even say the reason why some of the things this year have been disappointing to me and even a little shocking, and why actually I'm just doing this video publicly, not DMing him about this. Like, if you don't know, by the way, I disagree with LS, for example, on this topic about EWC and Caedrel core streaming. But you'll notice, beyond jokes and mild comments, you're not going to see me really call out LS, because if I ever thought about that, I'll DM LS. He is someone I consider a friend, at minimum an acquaintance, someone I care about, by the way. I would have said I cared about Caedrel before this. And so if I can, I would spare him the public humiliation. I would try and contact him privately and say, hey, what's going on with this? Or have you thought about this? And go, hey, watch out for this, mate. Like, you're going to get in trouble here. Or I think that's fucked up what you've done there. I'll always keep my opinion public that I think is important and is relevant to esports history and commentary on the scene. But actually in the past, if you don't know, yes, I have DM'd Caedrel over a bunch of other things where maybe he said a comment I thought was a bit shitty about me, or what was going on with this angle here. Is he framing something a certain way, or is he just dodging something? I have done that thing where I reach out. A lot of these people I try to treat like a little brother. I'm a bit Korean in that sense. And I've tried to DM him to mend fences, as you say in English slang. And you know what? It's worked in the past. In fact, there's even been times privately in the past where I actually thought he was doing something a bit drama baity, or he's making some weird implication about me and my career. And I've even gotten mad at him. And then he's been sort of like, no, that's not what I'm doing at all. Like, look, I do respect you, and that wasn't what I meant. I just meant this thing. And I've even been like, oh, you know what? Fair enough. Yeah, my bad on that one. Actually, sorry about that. Maybe I went off half-cocked. Maybe I should have had the safety trigger on or whatever. So I thought in the past this was someone where this wasn't an issue. But crucially, there was an incident earlier this year, let's just say around early February, where there was no reciprocation in that sense, on a different kind of more recent drama and issue than anything I'm referencing in the past. And that is, of course, when I did my notorious Reckless video. This was back on the 5th of February, 310,000 views. It was obviously about Reckless, who's the support player for Los Ratones, and what a piece of shit he has been, based not on my opinion, but on the testimony of what's essentially, by the way, what will one day be half of the Hall of Fame of European League of Legends. This person, considered, by their opinion, massively so, to be one of the most abusive and manipulated teammates of all time. And so what happened was I released a video, except I didn't just release a video. What I did was, the day before, or something like 12 or 16 hours before, I put up a tweet linking to a premiere which said that in 12 or 16 hours, this video is going to go live, and it's going to be a testimony of his teammates and people he worked with about who Reckless is as a player and a person. And when I did this, because Reckless himself famously turned his stream on and went, oh, I'm feeling anxious or whatever, and then just fucked off and wouldn't play scrims for Los Ratones, and Caedrel had to stand in. Caedrel did a stream, which sadly I can't find now, where basically, it'll be on there, but you just can't scroll back that many months on his channel. Basically, or at least I'm not a sub, so I can't do it. Basically, he said something on his stream, like he actually did address my video, which crucially, at the time he said this, he hadn't seen the video. And he basically said something like he tried to make an equivocation between something I'd done to him, to Caedrel, which is he basically tried to suggest that, I mean, again, I wish I had the video to pull up. He said something along the lines that, you guys know Thorin, he makes hate videos. He's made a hate video about me in the past. And I remember watching this going like, what? Dude, I thought we were cool. Like, I didn't even know that was a fucking thing you had, like, in the back of your mind still as baggage. Like, what, you have some resentment over? He never ever mentioned this to me privately, publicly. He'd done the interview with me years later, by the way. And what's mad is, that already made me think, like, fuck, have I misjudged Caedrel? Or is he just actually, in this case, just changing his whole perspective, to fit what's more politically expedient now, which is to defend Reckless? Which is kind of wild. Like, I actually think that's fucking a bit mad in itself. So let me just tell the story of that video. It was this video here. It was called Caedrel on LS. And it says here, broken clock. He's an entertainer. That's what Caedrel said, a quote from Caedrel about LS. And then I put belittled and discredited. By the way, this video has 67,000 views. This video was in March 24th of 2021. This is before Caedrel was a giant streamer, by the way. At the time, he was more just an LEC analyst, and he started to get known, and he was building some of it, but he was nowhere near the peak level you think of the last few years. And why I think it's crazy he decided to describe this as a hate video. It's a 42-minute long video, is what the video was actually about. This is why I despise people who use terms like hate, and then it's just so one-sided, and they can do anything and say anything they want, and that's never hate. They're never the hateful person. They're a wonderful person, and everyone they don't like's a stinky poo-poo Nazi hate person. So what he basically did is, it's actually the other way around. I was calling out him hating on fucking LS, who, by the way, get ready for the punchline, was a much bigger streamer at the time, that he was sort of hating on for clout and attention. So what happened at the time actually was on his fucking stream, or in a YouTube video, I think it was on his stream, Might have been both, because I think he did a video where he broke down something like LS had said or something. He basically said a quote that went along the lines of like 99% of LS's takes are bullshit, and then described him, recontextualized LS, one of the best analysts and thinkers ever in league and esports history, as like, he's an entertainer, as if, by the way, these are even fake opinions. Like, they're bullshit, and LS knows it, and he's just putting out bullshit takes out into the world just to get, attention and fame and money and drama and spark discussion and get all the eyes on him. By the way, when you're a tiny streamer and you say that about a giant streamer, especially one that's like basically kind of doing your gig, I think that's fucked up. So the reason this video, it's 42 minutes long, is I explained in the video, like, who the fuck are you, pal? Like, you know what? If you want to say his takes are bullshit, how about I critique you like that? And then I point out how he did all that stuff. Like, he would watch like a game and see the jungle path in, and someone would fuck up a buff and he'd be like, game's over. And it's like, that in itself's kind of a ridiculous take, right? Do you really mean that literally? No, you are doing it hyperbolically, like LS would hyperbolically, so you can't possibly pick this champion, etc. So I make this whole thing, I thought it was actually, what I was trying to do was sort of be a big brother and give him a fucking learning moment and sort of show, hey, do you know what? It's kind of fucked up when people publicly just take you apart, put you under the fucking microscope and do a little autopsy on you and try and read into everything you've said and done and be really cynical. It's kind of fucked up, isn't it? Aren't we sort of like a fucking brotherhood of content creators and people who care about the game, like you care about the game, LS cares about the game, Dom cares about the game, Monty cares about the game. Don't we all really care about the game and really good analysis? Let's just have great convos instead of like taking these shitty little shots at each other. So I thought actually at the time, I've actually pointed out how fucked up what he did is. I would say what he did by that logic is hate. Now I don't, because when people say hate, what they actually mean is the government or the police should like intervene with this, or the person in real life should be potentially attacked or maybe even killed because they're so hateful they almost can't be allowed to exist. That is an implication politically, by the way, when people say something like that. So what's sad is, at the time, he never ever addressed this to me. I think he might even have addressed it on his stream and sort of been like, oh yeah, guys, maybe I did go too far with like the LS thing. And at the time, I actually respected it. I thought, you know what, he fucking took it on the chin. But I guess he didn't. Or he just decided to put that in his back pocket or in the vault. And then when this Reckless thing came out, he just decided to pretend he'd always thought I was like a hate video creator the whole fucking time. Even though this video was in March of 2021. And I just showed you that the fucking Reflections interview was in 2023. So why are you doing content with people who create hate videos, bro? And someone who created a hate video about you? If he created a hate video about you, why would you then interact and do a massive interview on his channel years later when you're way bigger? Exactly. I don't buy it, mate. At a minimum, it means that, like, if we're being literal and generous to your current statements, not saying you've changed them, it would actually mean that what you did in the past was you were just scared that I'd make more hate videos about you and scared I'd comment on you. So instead you decided to do this interview with me and come on my talk shows, and that would sort of, like, make me not want to make content about it. Well, first of all, if that was true, you done fucked up, because if that tactic works, you should have done it now, mate. This video wouldn't exist. Sadly, it does for you. So yeah, you know what? Just like as usual, when everyone else in the scene goes, I like to call out things and say people are pieces of shit and call the whole hypocrisy out and scrutinise everyone else and say they should be kicked out the industry and people are evil. Oh, what's that? Someone I like, or someone who's bigger than me, or someone where it's not expedient for me to do that. They might not benefit me entirely. Oh, well, I guess I'll just stay silent. That's what the industry does. Well, you know what, homie? I'm your huckleberry. I'll be the guy, like I did with the Reckless one. I'll take it on the fucking chin. Like I said on Twitter after that video, nobody can fucking peel like me in League of Legends. I'm your fucking Odoam there, 369 Dream Tank player, motherfucker. So let's go. Let's get into this shit, shall we? Because I also think, by the way, it's kind of mad that he even took that angle with the Reckless video. The Reckless video hadn't come out at the time he made those comments. So you essentially suggest I make hate videos, but you didn't even know what was going to be in that video. I didn't give you a heads up on what the fuck was in that video. By the way, it had nothing to do with you. What, you currently employ him in your team? Who gives a fuck? It wasn't even about when he's in Los Ratones. It only went up to when he was in fucking Fnatic the last time. There wasn't anything about T1. There was nothing about Los Ratones. I never even suggested any of that stuff continued after that. So to me, even that in itself disappointed me, that he couldn't just like not say something about it or say something, but just be positive about Reckless. Go, hey, I like Reckless. He's always been cool to me. I mean, you could lie and say you hadn't heard any bad stories, but you could just say something like, oh, he's in Los Ratones now. I'm sure all the stories that he's going to tell weren't from Los Ratones, and he's a different person from T1 and now, or when he's had his autism diagnosed. You could have done some angle that was mainly about putting the focus on Reckless and being kind to Reckless, but instead you had to also basically throw a shot at me and be negative at me. Well, you know what? There's sort of a lesson to learn in many ways for this episode and how you treated other things and other people and then had to change your position later, and how you probably wish you didn't say certain negative or critical things and wish you'd only stuck with the positives, eh? Or you could have just not chosen a side. You could have supported Reckless a bit, but you could even have said something like, since it was when he wasn't on Los Ratones, I don't know what this has to do with me and him on Los Ratones now. But you know what? Without even fucking knowing what I was about to reveal. By the way, what if I'd actually revealed something crazy he'd done? Again, I don't even make to say these things because he didn't do this as far as I know. But what if he'd sexually harassed someone and I somehow had the information? And you're coming up before you know that going, this is the hit video from drama and click that. Yeah, he made him about me too. So you know what, homie? Between that and then more importantly, look, that was the motivator for me to be the one to call you out since no one else would do it. But there's another angle too, which is I do call out people specifically who are hypocrites about the whole Saudi, it'd also be Qatar and Dubai as well, but mainly people who work with people from the Middle East or for them or get paid by them, but have then taken some huge angle either to be against them previously. Certain people in games like Valorant and Overwatch might have done that. That might one day get capped metaphorically by me on a Twitch stream. Or they've overly flexed about gay angle or politics in general, and then they go and work with the Saudis or attend the Saudi events or partner with the Saudis or allow the Saudis into their space. I despise people like that. If there's one thing in this world I really hate, it's liars and hypocrites. I think most actual sin in the world stems from being a liar or a hypocrite. I think that's actually where it starts as a genesis point, and then it becomes a real world actualization through some other method. So I think I've been pretty consistent generally over my career and over these last few years of calling people out on this Saudi topic. Again, my position, I've made this a million times, but people don't like to listen to what's being said because they'd prefer to just talk and address nonsense that you haven't said or someone else said. Who the fuck knows why? I think it's important when you're talking to someone and telling them they're wrong to know what the fuck they said and understand what they meant. So I've been very consistent that I don't give a fuck about the Saudis. It's not about me and what I morally think about the Saudis. I don't particularly have a lot of thoughts. I don't really care what people do in the Middle East. I don't care what people generally do in other countries, the ones I live in or my family or my people live in. So in general, it's not for me about I'm against the Saudis. My position is mainly about calling out hypocrisy regarding the Saudis or gay rights, women's rights, Middle East, etc. Because if you're going to say I'm a virtuous person, I care about this thing, and then it's shown that you neither have the virtue nor that you actually care about it when push comes to shove, and in the real world you have to prove that, yeah, I think that's fucked up. And I think you should, in the same way you tried to build yourself up, you should be knocked down a peg or two, as we say in English. So, if you're someone who flexed super hard about women's rights, gay rights, US politics being terrible, oh my God, can't believe we're having events in Florida or Texas, and then you're just in bed with the Saudis getting massive bags. Or you cried about Carlos doing that tweet about Andrew Tate, or you cried about Andrew Tate himself, get him out of esports, and then you go and work for the Saudis or in Saudi Arabia or accept money from them in some context, then yeah, you know what, I'll likely get you. If not now, in the future, and or I'll call you out. I'll tell you what, I'll even actually offer you a crazy olive branch for one of the few oversights I've had on this topic, which is, oh yes, absolutely. By the way, a lot of the CS people who did that with Neon and Blast, people like Richard's called them out, some of them by name in videos, so actually it's already been taken care of. But for my part, I will say, one person who's never been called out is Shocks. Ooh! Did I just say that out loud? Yes, the host of the LEC, one of the greatest of all time at their job. Oh, don't worry. She herself said some stuff in the past about Neom and the Saudis, and then went and worked loads of events, including majors, with ESL, who were owned, lock, stock and barrel, by the Saudis. So yeah, you know what? That is someone I could have called out. But actually, I've given that one person a pass to this point, because if you knew behind the scenes, I don't even know how much of it is public, what she has gone through in her personal life over the last couple of years, it is really out there. It is some of the most extreme stuff that can happen to a person. And so even though, yes, she did say some things that now, quite frankly, are incongruent with her behaviour towards the Saudis and companies sponsored by, I mean, even in this case, MSI was fucking sponsored by them, weren't they? That's the same as a Neom deal. In fact, it's worse than a Neom deal in some sense. Yeah, that is someone I could call out. I mean, I'm sort of doing it a tiny bit here. But in general, because I know there are somewhat extenuating circumstances behind the scene, for now, I haven't done that. We'll see maybe if that ever does happen one day. Who knows? Maybe that leads to another video in the future. Who the fuck knows? Don't have plans for it right now. So my own position is simple. It's not anti-Saudi. I just don't give a fuck about the Saudis. But I do think if I'm going to call out other people for being hypocritical for working with the Saudis, even though their reason is they were hypocritical about it, I think if I then work with the Saudis, it will either look hypocritical, or some people might naively think it's hypocritical. So to me, my brand is about integrity. It's about having principles. And yeah, I actually do care about who I'm funded by generally, by the way. So I just thought it actually doesn't make sense for my brand to be attached with the Saudis in any context, because I'm going to criticize so many people who are working with them, even if it's in their case for hypocrisy I've never done. And so a lot of people might not realize this. I see this all the time. But people always try to do a whataboutism, but it doesn't even work. They always try to go, oh yeah? You're trying to be relevant. Look at this dickhead here. Thorin, I put up here, Caedrel said I create hate content, but he is being paid a king's ransom by the Saudis who cut people's heads off literally in real life during the month of EWC and put female activists in prison for decades. Miss me with your opinion about my actions here. By the way, that is a great point. If I make hate content, Caedrel, what the fuck do MBS and the Saudis do with their hate or love in real life, not content, to actual human beings who are alive and who will no longer be alive because of their actions, because of their policies, and because of what they believe and say they believe publicly? What about them? Are they hateful, Caedrel? Because if you can't call them out as hateful, how the fuck do you dare call me out as hateful? You are a fucking hypocritical piece of shit in that very specific regard. So I made this tweet, great tweet, isn't it? This dickhead goes, Thorin is trying to be relevant on following the hate train. Yeah, as all I've just started talking about the Saudis in 2025, you fucking imbecile. We all know Thorin would take the money if he was offered. Literally, factually untrue. First of all, we don't all know that. And secondly, I was offered. You know what? I was offered a lot more money than Caedrel was offered based on what I've heard. And if you don't know, my company, Last Free Nation, at the beginning was going to be funded by a bunch of legendary people in esports. And we found out one day before they were going to give us the contract to sign that actually, because of a different acquisition that just took place, the money was coming as funding via the Saudis. Now, look, I could have just said, so what? Just done it. But I never wanted it to be that they could ever try and pull our card and be like, hey, we're funded, you don't say this thing here. And I also thought, if I'm going to call out other people for working with them, it'd be a bit mad if my own company was funded by them. By the way, do you want to know what the cost to me was of turning down millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars from the Saudis? My company wasn't funded. After that, we had a really good institutional investment lead that said they were going to put in millions. And then basically, Esports Winter hit. We didn't get that. And we had to literally turn the company, which was going to be my main source of income. By the way, I had a contract for a 6-figure amount of money from all this stuff that was set up and promised. It was going to be my main source of income. Instead, me and Monty had to basically run the company now for something like 3 years. Maybe 2.5, no, maybe 3 years. 3 years as like a startup where we had to work completely different income streams until sort of last year when we finally started to make some money ourselves from the company. That's what I had to do for my principles, for my integrity, to be who I say I am. You fucking dickhead. I've actually proven what I say is what I do and think and believe. People like Caedrel have proven the opposite, and dickheads like you don't even care either way. You're just trying to pick people apart or deflect from what your dude has done, my guy. So fuck utter idiots like this. People don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So, in general, by the way, I'm just going to put this out there. One of the things I actually will say at the very outset of the video is, I actually hate that this is all about talent, commentators and analysts, streamers, players, professionals at the game, and team orgs. That they're the main people who get all the ire of fans and all the criticism for all of this shit. Because if you don't know, team orgs have stupid margins where they just lose money running these teams and lose money in general. And they have to get all this crazy investment money or crazy sponsors, etc. Or they have to go and work with the Saudis. That's the things that they have to do to be really competitive top-level teams, much as you see in certain other sports and fields. Talent, the commentators and the analysts, they have to work events, otherwise they aren't talent. And if EWC becomes massive in League, it's going to be important. I can tell you in Counter-Strike, ESL's the best and the most important tournament organiser, and they're owned by the Saudis. They're the people who run EWC, if you don't know. So if you're talent, you're basically saying, by boycotting, I'm just not going to be a big talent, or I'm going to be less relevant, or my job might not exist. So I get why there's pressure on these people. If you're a pro player, what say do you even have in it? You're a guy who just gets paid to give his likeness rights away to his team org, put on a jersey that has sponsors you didn't negotiate or decide or agree upon, and then just play a video game with no other concerns. You just play the game. You don't decide anything about what your team does, where they play, and yet these are the people we're raking over the coals the hardest. You know the people who are the ultimate people to blame for all of this shit is the game devs. It's Riot Games, it's Valve Software, it's Blizzard Entertainment, it's fucking Activision Blizzard, etc., Microsoft, all of them. Because first of all, they're the ones who grant the licenses. If they don't grant the license because they own the IP rights, literally the Esports World Cup couldn't have Counter-Strike, Dota 2, League of Legends, and other Call of Duty. It couldn't have any of these games in it. They allow these events to happen in the first place. Then they make themselves insane esports profit. They make so much money off their game that comes semi-directly from esports being around and stimulating interest in it and keeping people following the game and seeing the new weapons and champions and skins and all that shit. They make loads of money that not only do they just hoard and give barely any back to the teams and the players, but more importantly, they hide it. They won't tell everyone how much they're making, which is a giveaway. They're making such crazy money. If they told you, there'd be an industry-wide revolution, maybe even lawsuits, and people would demand more of a cut. That's the real revolution that hasn't happened in esports. So they make this insane profit. By the way, they could easily just open up a tiny little revenue stream to team orgs and tournament organisers that then would mean they wouldn't need to. You can even say, I don't want you to work with the Saudis if that's something I believe is important. And that would be it tomorrow. There'd be no Saudi tournaments, no one would want to work with them anyway, and we'd also be doing other things. Instead, they sort of say, no, the Saudis coming in, well, you can let them, just like Riot does now. Same with gambling, same with crypto, same with Saudis. You can let them fund you guys so that I don't have to give you a cut of the massive pie I'm eating. You can have a little crumb for me, and then they can give you half of their pie. That's what they're doing. Oh, and by the way, the game devs themselves are hypocritical because some of them themselves flex all. They're like, I care about gay rights and women. Well, the idea Riot could never pretend that, but they all do. Oh, it's Pride Month. That's what they did right before Neo. If you don't know, they cynically launched the Neon deal right after Pride Month ended in 2020 in, I'm going to guess, Europe, Cologne or whatever. So what we're going to do, and this is going to be kind of fun actually, I've never done this before, is I'm actually going to, for the first time, show some actual clips of other people's content. I'm going to react to it. In the past, I haven't done this because I was always worried people would copyright strike me, etc. But I'm going to make this really done properly. So in theory, there'd be a legal defense against it. And hopefully there'll be no copyright strikes, etc. And then I can start to introduce more stream content. In the past, I would just transcribe what they said and read it out. But obviously that's less kind of dynamic, isn't it? So let's get into this particular topic. What happened was, the day before EWC began, so it began on Wednesday at Europe at least. And so this was on Tuesday of this week. Caedrel did this stream and he started to talk about some of these topics. And you'll see some of the things he said. The mod situation. Actually, let me talk about something first before. People are saying that I dropped the EWC news at the end of the MSI stream, and then I came back to England on a flight and just left it. So
it's about when and how he put it out there.
If you actually watch the MSI streams, I said that I was doing it 2 days before even saying it. If you watch when I went through. You can even check the Caedrel clip channel. We went to the EWC groups.
This is true. You can look it up.
I mentioned it multiple days before.
It's on his clip channel.
It's not like I dropped it. I've been talking about it like for months and months and months, and I basically said that I was doing it. I don't know when that video dropped. There's like a video that we did, or like a time at MSI where we were talking about.
Now, I'll already pause it, because first things first, I will just corroborate what Caedrel said. If you go to his own subreddit, you will see, this is 6 days ago now, so it's during the end of MSI, on his stream, when he's wrapping up MSI, he mentions there that he's going to be doing it, he'll be back for EWC, which obviously he didn't co-stream the past year, and during the event before that, he also showed the groups that were released for EWC, because that was during MSI, and he gave his thoughts on that overall. So he actually didn't, by the way, drop it like right as he was just leaving the stream, or like as he was on a flight so that he couldn't get any criticism, which is what people are trying to claim. I'll get to that in a second, but I'll just prove what he's saying is correct.
I'll be live in a couple days. Thank you all for being here for MSI. It's been fucking legendary. The interviews have been crazy. The chat's been crazy. The game's been crazy. We'll be back for EWC. And yeah.
Yeah, so he actually confirmed there, even though he'd already done it via assessing the groups, etc., that he was going to be back for EWC. He didn't like make it some way, dropped it 1 second before the stream began or some shit like that. Now, I will just say, already I have a slight issue with that, which is, so the first most important thing you need to address about why you're co-streaming EWC is some gotcha on whether the fans have got you on the notion that like, oh, actually, you just left it and tried to sneak it out there. And you're like, no, I did not, sir. I did not do that. Your big gotcha is that you actually revealed it a few days earlier. Mate, I don't think the biggest thing they're mad about is that you dropped it at the end of the event. It's obviously about the whole thing about the gay rights and what did the Saudis do and all that shit, isn't it? So you're going to address that as a massive issue. bro, then you better, if you're going to nitpick like that, get to all the criticism of your past behaviour and actually address it all case by case and why you thought that, not just make up a totally different position later and pretend you always held it, that you never said things that were political and never used your Twitter for political purposes. Because that's the problem. It just makes you into a crazy hypocrite, doesn't it? Because, by the way, your past behaviour does suggest you are a hypocrite now. I'll start by showing you some instances because I'm going to refer back to them many times during this video. So first things first, remember, he's never been a political person, guy. He just plays the video and loves League of Legends and didn't go to uni and dropped out of school, didn't he? Well, then here's a little key detail I think is pretty relevant if you're then going to go and work with the Saudis. Is this you back in the LEC holding up a flag, my dude? Which I don't even know what this flag is. I looked it up online and apparently it is the bisexual flag. That's apparently what this means. So you chose to hold up a flag, flexing support. Look, I can see in the background people are handing them out, and it looks like there's the transgender one in the top left arm. That looks like the general rainbow flag in this part here coming to this player. Oh, don't get me wrong. I'm sure they just handed this out, and this was just like, hey, photo opportunity. Will you hold up a flag? And yeah, why not? No, I'm sorry, dude. That's a picture of you at your place of work at the time as a professional player in League of Legends, holding up a flag, showing, that's the purpose of holding it up, your support for bisexual people. By the way, bisexual people would include men who fuck men. Yeah, they're the people that get killed in Saudi Arabia, by the way, in certain cases. They can get put in prison for being a heretic and against the religion and being a deviant, having a deviant lifestyle. These are all the things that can happen in Saudi Arabia. So already, when you tell me like, oh, I've never done anything political. Bullshit. But that's just the first instance, homie. Let's keep going, shall we? Because then, how about another instance? How about when you said on Twitter, right around the time that Carlos did that tweet where he had Andrew Tate in the background, where there was that cake and all those bottles or whatever, you did a tweet saying, look, Becca Henry here, who is actually the wife of Quickshot, who I think, by the way, is actually comms for G2 now, who work with the EWC. And look, she doesn't call them out, really. By the way, her husband works as the main host for EWC in all the games. Funny bedfellows politics make for is a famous saying, if you don't know Becca. Actually, someone I like, by the way. Then Caedrel had decided, no one made him do this, he decided, when he'd already become like a streaming figure, to quote tweet that and go, fuck Andrew Tate. Fuck Andrew Tate, right? Oh, okay. Bold stance. Well, you know what, Caedrel? If it's fuck Andrew Tate, then what is it for MBS or the Saudi regime? Because they're the ones, if you don't know, that fund the EWC. It's not that it just takes place in Saudi Arabia like very dumb people pretend or actually think. What happens is Saudi Arabia has something called the Public Investment Fund where they put loads of the wealth of their country, particularly from oil, etc. And from the Public Investment Fund, they own a company called Savvy Gaming Group. And Savvy Gaming Group, by the way, Public Investment Fund was also funding Neom. Savvy Gaming Group are the ones that bought ESL Faceit Group and run via that company the Esports World Cup. So it's absolutely the case, and they even say that within Savvy Gaming Group, Mohammed bin Salman, the leader of Saudi Arabia, is actually hands-on, and that he's a gamer, and that he really cares about that particular project. So if it's fuck Andrew Tate, Caedrel, absolutely a political statement, by the way, that's the whole premise of the context here, then what is it to MBS and the Saudis? And if you can't say you're either one, full of shit, or two, the sports washing has worked, and as we're going to show, it has, and you are now not saying fuck them in any context, or even talking about what they're doing, because it's not politically expedient. This got you a load of likes. It got you 15k likes and almost 700 retweets, and everyone was loving you. My tweets. Everyone was loving you. But you know what? Magically now, you don't have an opinion about Saudi. You're just a guy who, didn't go to uni, and you're just sort of NVIDIA, and, hey, you had a migraine a few days, give me a fucking break, homie. This is crazy. It's just not true. Then here's another one. On the 2nd of April 2024, you were streaming, I think it was the LPL, and here's what you said.
Well, but apparently I heard that...
What do you hear, homie? What do you hear?
Supposedly,
yeah?
there are, for the Saudi tournament and stuff like that, there's a lot of background checks happening to the people participating.
Oh, wait a second, pause. Background checks. You mean like they check like what you said on social media and things you've said in the past, and that might actually affect whether they hire? Keep that in mind, guys.
So, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Fuck yeah, I love gay people.
the map that well.
Gay people rock.
Especially since you don't have the Dominus on Shanju to be safer in that bot side.
Well, I guess the background check, I don't know if I passed.
What a funny thing to say, Caedrel, in 2024 when you weren't working with the Saudis. And later on, presumably, they did a background check on you. And as I'm about to show in a minute, it seems like you've deleted some content off your social media, my son. It's almost like you wanted to pass the background check, or they found it in the background check. And so in exchange for your giant bag of money, you have actually now basically gone and done exactly what you were sort of making fun of here. And you've gone out your way in your comment to go, I've heard they do background checks. By the way, if people can't understand the implication, his implication is I'm not going to work with the Saudis. And in fact, I'm going to almost go out of my way to show I won't by failing a future background check by just saying, and he's implying that he knows that the Saudis, he's going to pretend later he doesn't know anything about politics. He's now showing that he understands the Saudis don't fuck with gay people. And that if you said, for example, I love gay people, they rock, that might be something that might cause you problems with getting hired with or associating with the Saudis later on. So it's almost like he is playing a little game now, guys, where now he pretends to be just a little legend streamer who don't know nothing about politics. But in the past, he was all, fuck Andrew Tate, check out the bisexual flag. You know what? Gay people rock. I love my gays. No fucking background check on your boy Caedrel. You'll see what's going to come in a second. By the way, do you know what? The Saudis also agree that gay people rock, Caedrel, when they're stoning them to death in real life, my dude. When they are actually murdering them in real life. Do you understand? This isn't a fucking internet game with imaginary people where you just get free points and you get like a level up and you're just playing video games. This isn't video games. This is real life, mate. You have pretended to have a position and stake it out in real life. And by the way, again, for fucking internet likes and people to think you're cool and you represent what they do. And then when push comes to shove, you've not only not lived up to what you said, you work and receive money directly from the people who kill gay people and do exactly those things. That is what you have done in the past. That is real. And do you want to know something? Logically, if you love gay people and gay people rock and the Saudis do these background checks, then you could never work in any context or receive money from the Saudi government, right? Because you know what the Saudi government, what happens in Saudi Arabia to gay people? Let me show you. Here's a magazine called The Independent from the UK. You probably think you're from the UK and have political independence, don't you? Well, let's just see. So this is an article from 2017. It says 2 transgender Pakistanis tortured to death in Saudi Arabia. Pakistan human rights activists demand information from Saudi Arabia over 11 transgender people still in custody. So let's just go down here. 2 transgender people were packed in sacks, thrashed with sticks and tortured to death, according to human rights activists. Police allegedly killed this person, 35 years old, this person, 26 years old, after raiding a house in Saudi Arabia and arresting 35 transgender people. And Pakistan demanded to know from Saudi Arabia what was going on and how this was possible and why other people were still in custody. And he even said down here, they are not treated fairly, even by criminal law in Saudi Arabia. And it's people from different parts, not just Pakistan, people from different parts of the world. Explains some of the things that happen, gender fluid, people are treated badly, sometimes flogged. And if someone is arrested on the same law for a second time, they can be executed. That means you are fucking killed. And if you don't know, by the way, Caedrel, the number 1 method of execution in Saudi Arabia is literal beheading publicly. That's right, some Ambessa, public execution shit. But you probably only know about that when it's the ultimate to Ambessa, don't you, my dude? So already, just absolute fucking insanity on this topic, right? That's not it. It doesn't even stop there. Oh, Lord, it doesn't even stop there. Because another thing that happened was this, which is, at last year's Esports World Cup, the talent announcement came out, and Chronicler, analyst of the LCK at the time, apparently a guy, by the way, who apparently studied law and even studied human rights abuses or something like that. He basically, as far as we know, chose not to and declined working with the Saudis, even though it was already known last year you could make loads of money doing it. And so Caedrel, when the announcement came out, his only comment on the announcement was to quote tweet the announcement, do a Giga Chad meme, which is the idea of you're like based, and say holy at Chronicler Cast, which is like base Giga Chad. Now, explain the context to me. If you don't know politics or anything the Saudis do, how would that be based? What's Giga Chad about Chronicler turning the event down? You apparently don't know anything about politics. You don't know what they do there. You aren't someone who comments on things. Contextually, you're saying he's based or a Giga Chad because he doesn't work with the Saudis for political or moral reasons. That's the key. That's the whole context, I contend, of what you're saying in that statement. And now, do you want to know what's insane? As far as I know, when I tried searching, I couldn't find this tweet. It's been deleted. Almost like the Saudis or you have done a background check on yourself, and someone's even pointed that out, and you've just deleted it. Now, what is based about that, mate? Can you explain that to me? Again, if you don't know and don't comment. What? You just comment about League of Legends the game. So what in League of Legends the game is based about that? And also, you only post about League of Legends on your Twitter, do you? Liar. I've just shown you haven't right now. In the last 20 minutes, you fucking liar. You outrageous bastard. And also, why delete it now, mate? Do you know why, Caedrel? Because that is sports washing, dummy! That is sports washing. They pay you, so you delete former criticism of them, or don't speak out against them, or point in or signal in any way that they do things there. That's sports washing. Guess what? They don't really think they have to pay you more money than God to talk about League of Legends, bro. You do it for free in theory. They know that this is what they're paying for. This is what they bought from you. They bought you, homie. They bought you. You sold out. Oh, and by the way, I'll just put this out there now. Because actually, there is one other thing I want to bring up here, which is, I'll even defend Caedrel for 1 second, just for 1 second, of course, which is, I'll just show you this quickly. I saw a lot of people saying, like, wasn't Caedrel part of that, like, Neon thing with all the casters? No, that's why you need the Esports historian. You've gotten your years off on that one. Like, if you go to this, Caedrel's career page, and you scroll down, what you're going to see is he was still a pro player. If you don't know, the Neon thing took place 29th of July. Was it July? Let me think. I think it was July. 29th. I'll actually see on this page here. Where was it? Yeah, 29th of July in 2020. At the time, Caedrel was still a player. He was on XL. He was a jungler. Like, I'll even show you here. Team rosters, summer season, XL, Caedrel. He played all the games. Around this time here would even be like before and after the whole Neon thing. He was a pro player at the time. He wasn't, as far as I know, part of the LEC thing of like, we can't do that. I don't think he had any tweets. By the way, if you ever do want to know about that topic, there's actually a pretty good page on Gamepedia. It's called the 2020 LEC Neon Partnership Controversy. They talk about all these issues, and including the fact that apparently homosexuality can be punished by death. And they give a timeline of it all. They give like details to all the people who came out and said stuff, including Shocks, including Quickshot, Frostcorin, Dre Cosmetic, all those people. The partnership is terminated. All these things. LEC comes out and says it was a mistake and all that jazz. Got all the media, got all the references. It's actually a pretty good page. I've got to say, I'm surprised this even exists. Maybe that's the next move for the Saudis. Ask for this fucking page to be taken now, homie. Pay out that fee, right? Then also, there's another detail, which is, again, remember, he doesn't comment on things that would in any way now relate to this or make it so that you could, like, call him out in any way, right? And by the way, remember, he thinks I make videos that are hateful, but apparently killing gay people in that country, that's not hateful. You can just continue to receive money from those people. So here's another detail that people might not know about, which is there was a video where he was reacting to news about EWC last year. Now, this is interesting. Listen to this.
What is this? Teams got even more money. Saudi Arabia was said to provide another 125k to each team participating in the EWC as the cash reward was too low.
Oh,
what?
125k.
125k to each team just for participating? What the fuck? You win MSI. If you win MSI, you get 50k. If you participate in this, you get 125. What? Nah. Yeah, bro, they are absolute money hack. But you know.
Now, I actually can't tell, and I am English, by the way. To be fair, he apparently like lived in other countries and went to like an international school. So even I can lose parts of his accent. I can't tell what he said there. Like it's something like they are absolute money hacks, like sellouts for money, or money hags, or I don't know what he said, but it was something like that. It was like, they're absolute money hacks or something, because they're going to, in this case, Fnatic and other teams are attending EWC because they're getting paid, according to this story, $125,000 each to attend. And so as he's pointing out, and he contextualizes, he goes on to do it further on in the video, by the way, he points out that if you're a team like Fnatic, basically you can come like last place at this tournament and make way more than you did from MSI. And he's also, obviously, quite clearly, as I just pointed out, making the case that like you're just attending for money. You're just doing this because of money. Now, by the way, why would that ever be a problem? It's obvious that you'd, outside of the Riot circuit where you're all salaried, of course you'd be paid prize money to attend other events. In fact, clubs would receive fees. That's been known for years in games like Counter-Strike and Dota, Caedrel. By the way, Caedrel actually has kind of a weird understanding of esports elsewhere. I saw him make some other comments about other games that were quite bizarre. But basically, he's making that almost something sinister or cynical. Well, do you want to know something fun? If you want to contextualise Fnatic and what they did and what they got and what it cost them and what their losses versus prize money was, I can just do that with you based on what we now know about you, homie. Which is, how about this comment by Monte Cristo, an incredibly informed insider in the industry? He said on the 12th of July, in the coming days, it is likely you will see some major esports content creators announce their participation in the Esports World Cup, like Caedrel. It is important to note that these people do not need the money and yet have chosen to take massive payouts, including some in the high six figures. Pause. That's something I heard. I heard Caedrel makes more than $100,000 a day to co-stream EWC. Now, he was just going off about Fnatic receiving $125,000 one-time payment just to attend the event. He's getting seemingly like that sort of money every day to just co-stream it, to be part of promoting it, not just playing it, promoting it. They are willingly becoming complicit in a Saudi effort to cover up human rights abuses. Saudi Arabia has only increased their imprisonment and execution of political dissidents since they launched the Esports World Cup. Pause. That's actually true. I believe the numbers were so low before because of COVID. If you don't know, in the years since they bought the ESL Faceit Group and running EWC and Gamers 8, they execute more people each year. In fact, as I said, I looked it up last year, they even execute during the month, like this month that everyone goes to EWC and next month to attend the event, Westerners, they don't even stop killing them and beheading them then. They still execute them during that. In fact, I've always said to people in the industry now, if you claimed you cared about gay rights, bro, it must just be in the same city that they're beheading the guy while you're attending. How far would it have to go? Would it have to literally be right next to you as you're at the PC? Fuck it. Would they have to ask you to press the button to chop the guy's head off with a guillotine? What are we doing? What is this? It is ethically impossible to say that you care about women's rights, LGBTQ rights, freedom of speech, democratic society, secularism, due process, or almost any other Western core values while working at or to promote the Esports World Cup. It is even more despicable when it's done by people who already have huge amounts of money and could easily turn it down. That's definitely Caedrel, by the way. It is also not possible to plead ignorance about the Saudi goal of sports washing when people are clearly being offered sums of money far above reasonable market rate. Monty knows what people make in the industry. There's a reason they'd offer you 6 figures a day. By the way, even 5 figures a day would be fucking fabulous money to earn to commentate or co-stream esports. The only purpose behind these huge payouts is to buy silence. Let's say you don't comment on the human rights like Caedrel now, where you delete your old tweets, and promotion of the Saudi regime. If you can't see that, you are a fucking moron. You put a bit of mustard on the hot dog at the end there. I say it is likely because I, perhaps naively, hope that some of these people will change their minds. To those people, you can and will make more money. It is impossible to wipe the stain from your soul from accepting what you know is blood money. And as I pointed out, Caedrel does know that, as his past comments have made clear. Now, the reason I bring that up is, if he's making that sort of money, guess what? As Monty pointed out, you are being paid that enormous sum of money because they don't want you to talk about Saudi human rights abuse. They don't want you to mention gay people or women in their country. They want you to, maybe even I would speculate, delete your GigaChad tweet, mate. They want you to associate your brand with theirs and help promote them and deliver your audience right into their fucking hands. And make them, because you're cool and your audience like you, by association, think the Saudis are cool and like the Saudis. Or even think it's not a big deal that my guy works for them, so it's not a big deal that they do anything or that I watch it or that I participate in the Esports World Cup. That's what they are doing when they do that, by the way. Oh yeah, and another little detail. There was another tweet by Monty. Riddle me this. 16th of July. If co-streaming EWC is apolitical, then why are there contract clauses that say you cannot speak ill of Saudi Arabia as a country or discuss their political situation? Surely the tournament wouldn't be used to suppress discussion of their human rights abuses. Reminder that no other tournament makes you sign contracts where you cannot discuss the political situation in the country in which it takes place. He spelled it out for you right there. And Caedrel knows all of this, by the way. I'm speculating, but I'm going to say he knows all of this. I think by implication, evidence, and based on what Monty said, he knows this. He knows exactly what we're talking about. He didn't mention some of that stuff, you'll notice. Why did he? If he's so transparent, why not just be forthcoming and say that? What it's all about. So, okay, let's keep going.
And then for the mod situation, I didn't know what was going on until around 5, 6 p.m. last night. And then I checked what was going on, spoke to the mods, and I realized what was going on.
Yeah,
and
let's
then
find
basically
out.
what was happening is people had lots of opinions. People were sharing these opinions publicly, whether they were good or bad.
Imagine
I'm
that.
here to tell you
They
what
haven't
the
been paid,
opinion should
mate.
be, right? You can have your own opinion. And the mods were kind of deleting posts. And the reason...
What? Yeah, why would they do
what I wanna
that?
say for the mods here, and
Why would
I
they
wanna
do it?
defend them a little bit, is the mods were doing it because everything was out of control. You know, there was post. And we had this rule that if there's a lot of posts about something, let's make a mega thread. So the mods, because there was only like 3 or 4 of them, it wasn't that they were trying to censor posts.
No, why would they be
just
trying to
couldn't
censor it?
control it? So they tried to delete them and make one mega thread so people could just talk about it there. And then when I realized what was going on and I spoke to the mods, I said, okay, we shouldn't do a mega thread. We should just do whatever the fuck. You can keep the mega thread up, but allow anyone to say anything they want.
Oh, okay. What about the rules?
Community or Reddit, they can say whatever they want.
What about the rules?
So you'll see that there was another post by the mod a couple hours later, which basically said, update, you can post whatever you want. All I said to the mods was, if anyone starts attacking each other, like personally, then I think that should be deleted. That's it.
Another lie. If you don't know, this year, I showed you earlier, in February, I released my video about Reckless, and even before the video had come out, his entire subreddit, Pedro Pepos, was full of threads about me, Reckless, this video coming up, support Reckless, we should have the video taken down, Thorin's a piece of shit. There were so many threads, and they didn't delete them all and make a mega thread. That's a total lie. That's either a brand new rule. By the way, if it's a rule, why have you just told the mods not to do it now? Obviously, your mods, by the way, the joke is they get more than you saying publicly now, mate, what the gig is. They understand that the Saudis have just bought silence on your subreddit and people not criticising the event constantly along these lines, and this is really bad PR for you and the Saudis. They understand that, mate, and you know that as well. And then you said this absolute lie that all you told them was, hey, but if people start doing personal attacks, delete them. Look, I'm not going to make this video 3 hours long, but I could show you let's be real, thousands of comments of people personally attacking me, in some cases before they've seen the video, saying the most outrageous lies, insults and personal attacks on me, someone who literally helped you in your career, Caedrel, and has been nothing but fair to you. They did that over and over again, and you didn't say shit to your mods. You didn't tell them to do anything. You know why? Because I don't pay you 6 figures a fucking day for your silence, homeboy. That's why. Hope you got that one. Hope we've understood that concept now. So then let's skip forward, shall we?
You might already know, but if you're just someone who's on Twitter, you probably don't know, and you probably just believe what the first person says. Now, if you remember, I pulled up the VODs for it. Last year, I didn't do EWC because it was a week where I was extremely burnt out. I had fucking bad migraines the whole time. I had a shitty setup, and I was spending the week with my dad. That was the main reasons why I didn't do it. I was at the Formula 1 race with my dad, my head was cooked, and I even spoke about the tournament straight after. The whole Reddit was covered in EWC posts that we went over.
Right, let's just pause this a second. So what were his reasons again? He was burned out, he had migraines, he had a shitty setup, and he was spending the week with his dad at Formula 1. Now, here's what's weird about that. No mention of gay shit or issues were represented in EWC. It's just that he was burned out from MSI, he had migraines, he had a bad setup, and he was spending time with his dad. So we're not mentioning that you didn't work the event because at the time you didn't want to work with them because of the gay shit, or you didn't want to work with them because you'd have issues associating your brand with theirs. You didn't, even though what you've already said about I love gay people in the background check and the chronicler tweet show that that is clearly what was going on in your mind. That was the thought space you were in at the time. And at the time, you sort of reveal this later. Now it is going to be like a regular event every year. It's only going to get bigger, and it might even one day be the set of people. Maybe you even know this coming down the pipeline. Well, I think one day they'll be just producing MSI or LEC or something like that. So you maybe know that, like, hey, this is the way your bread has to be buttered, mate. If you want to be a big person, the biggest in league still, and do all the big events. And obviously this is an important event now in a way it wasn't last year, right? By the way, it still has a Mickey Mouse format, mate. Why are you all cool working with it now? Well, it's weird how that works, isn't it? So no, it's just because you had migraines and all that. That's why it didn't work. Again, let's just pretend it was never to do with anything else. It was just some weird other circumstances that don't exist anymore. Then let's go forwards again a little bit.
Back then, I was just... Yeah, it was the format that I was flaming a lot. Back then, I was just a streamer.
It was just the format he was flaming. He didn't say, you know, I love gay people rock, or based gay content. Yeah, weird how that works.
Now, I'm a streamer and a team owner, and I have to think about the future of esports, given that every esports and almost everyone in their scenes are participating at the event, whatever it may be, and Riot's...
Can I just ask a question? Why do you have to care about that? Why does you becoming a team owner means that your previous position about supporting gay people and women and stuff and fuck Andrew Tate, all that jazz, why does that now mean because you're a team owner and none of that exists so you don't have principles anymore? Do you know one thing I think is fucked up is the excuse everyone loves to hide behind, particularly public companies where you have a fiduciary responsibility just to make raw profit for your shareholders, where you pretend like I have to do evil because that's what I need to do to make money. No, when you make a team that's your team, bro, you can imbue the team while you still own and run it with your principles and values. I'd even say that's one of the best things you could do. I think it's why G2 was legendary where Carlos was involved. Why teams like Cloud9 clearly have all the Jack's fingerprints all over it, and Reginald in TSM, even though I think he was negative, certainly had a massive influence over the org. You know what? You could actually be the one org. You're a giant streamer, mate. You could be the one org that uses your org to stand against this shit and go, we're not a part of it. We're not involved in it. Even if you offer Lost Return as a spot, we won't play. I love gay people rock. Based gigged chronicler. Fuck Andrew Tate. Hey, check out this flag. I love bisexuals, mate. Yeah, it sounds like you're a fucking bisexual, mate, because you can be, you get turned on by being bought. They bought you, dude. Did they buy you? Mate, give me a fucking break. Give me a break. I mean, they're making you fuck yourself. That's what they bought, I guess. So, no, I'm sorry. That's all absolute nonsense. I mean, let me just put this out there. Since you're now a team owner, not just some shitter fucking variety streamer, that's a bit mean, but I'm in a mood right now. How about show some fucking backbone then, homie? Like, this is a dilemma I've been through myself. I've had to sit down and think, would there be times where, for the sake of my own family, I might need to do things like just bend the knee, just do things I don't think are right, or just not speak out because it might cost me my job, some opportunities, I might get blacklisted from the industry. And what I realised, the conclusion I came to, it's my own personal moral quandary, not yours, is I decided for who I am that to be the person that is the leader of my family, that is an important part of my family, that actually I would rather set an example and be that person that they love and respect and rely on. And that if I had to do all those things, unless we're literally talking about starving or all dying, no, I wouldn't do it. If I had any leeway or bandwidth to not do it, I would say it to my family. This is actually why I'm not doing it, for a matter of principle and morals. In fact, I'm taking a stand now, even though it might actually cost us materially in the short term and maybe even in the long term, because I want you, my family, to know that I'm a man of principle, that I think these are important matters and that this is what I stand for. So you know what? Even if we have to be poorer, but I get to be who I am, the person you love and respect and care for, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to give all that up just so that we can have like a more expensive holiday or a nicer car, or we can have better food, or we can get the latest video games and gadgets, right? That's the conclusion I came to, and I have already pointed out through my company, I have acted upon that. I don't work with the Saudis, actually not because of that angle, it's actually because of some shit they did back as ESL years ago, where I also took a moral stance. I thought it was absolutely corrupt, the way they took some ESL Pro League slots away in North America and Counter-Strike to just give them to bigger orgs to battle a rival organiser that I worked for at the time. So I've done that. I've actually lived up to this, mate. I have way less money than you, I'll tell you that right now. Then let's go to this part here. By the way, also, here's another obvious thing. Why does you now having a team and letting Bouse and Veldia play for you suddenly mean you don't give a fuck about gay people? And that gay people don't rock and you won't mention them and you'll delete old tweets? Why would those two go hand in hand? Right, I'm a team owner now, so I have to say fuck gay people. Well, I have to just delete my tweets. I guess I don't think it's based anymore. In fact, I don't even care about gays anymore now because I'm a team owner in it. So I've got to pay people to play video games in ERLs. Like, that's fucking whack. This is why I'll never understand this argument for people like, yeah, but it's a lot of money. You said you can't work with people who kill gay people. I'm talking about other people here. You can't then go, I can't work with them because they kill gay people. What if I had another zero? Well, what can I do now, guys? I have to work with them. Yeah, continue killing them, but give me an extra zero on the check. What sort of fucking argument is that? Yeah, but everyone's doing it now, Thorin. All the tournaments are in that. You said your principle is that they kill gay people. So logically, you could only then now work with them if they no longer kill. Did they agree to no longer kill gay people? No, and not only that, you never even brought that up as a fucking negotiation topic, did you, idiot? Of course you fucking didn't.
Trying to be as transparent as I can.
That's transparency.
Another question that kept rocking up, which has been like something that's been around for many months. Many years, actually.
Gosh.
People ask me a lot, why do I never do politics? Why do I never talk about
Great
politics?
question.
Why do I never talk about politics on stream?
You do, but okay.
The reason I never talk about politics on stream is because I never went to university. I dropped out of school. And half of my life has been, my adult life, has been being a pro player or being a streamer.
Okay.
Streaming is literally just, for me, and for you, a place of entertainment and fucking escapism. I don't use my platform for politics. A lot of people can criticize me for not having a stance. But obviously this is intentional.
You had a stance.
All I'm doing is trying to entertain, cover games, and do what I've been doing my whole adult life, which is watching League, playing League, and investing my life into League. And that's why you'll see that I don't use my platform for anything related to anything else that's not League. I don't even tweet about my personal life or what I'm doing in my life. My whole Twitter is just League of Legends.
Literal lie. He had the Chronicle tweet. He had the fuck Andrew Tate tweet. On stream, he commented about how he loves gay people and gay people rock, and that if someone Saudi's doing a background check, maybe he's just failed a background check. These are literal lies. He literally appeared when he was at his job as a pro player, held up a bisexual flag. These are all literal. I've shown you. It's fucking evidence. It's all proof. I've shown he is a literal liar. Oh, you never talk about politics, don't you? You did. You never use your Twitter for anything except League of Legends. What would fuck Andrew Tate have to do with League of Legends, my dude? Explain that to me. What would based Chronicle have to do with League of Legends? How is he based in the game League of Legends? Because he didn't work EWC, mate. What are you talking about? This is just absolute fucking bullshit. He did say stuff previously. By the way, why would you be talking about gay people if you weren't talking about League of Legends? You weren't talking about Tarek, I'll tell you that much, homie. You weren't talking about Caitlyn in the Arcane universe. Oh, by the way, you know when people do that like silly thing of like, what if at EWC people pick a comp of like Caitlyn and Tarek? Those characters aren't gay in the law in Saudi Arabia, you stupid fucking idiot. Riot Games and people like that acquiesced years ago as far as I know on those topics, and they expressly in those countries make it so that that isn't the case. It's the same as that famous thing during Pride Month where it'll be like North American division of a company with the Pride flag, then it'll be Middle East and Asia, nothing. Korea, nothing. So here's another thing we can just go and have a quick look at, shall we? Remember, he isn't a political person, he's apolitical. Someone on his subreddit made this banger. Because there were some people who were pissed off with Caedrel. They made this little sort of spectrum that Caedrel was on. And they show, right, so in the middle would be politically neutral. No opinion about the Saudis and gays and stuff like that. Right, so what he shows here is that Caedrel began, contra, that means against. You started with Giga Chad Chronicler tweet. I would also say, and also like, I'm failing the background check, love gays, bisexual flag. That would be you're against EWC, by definition, as Monty's post points out. Then you're just not watching it. Okay, that's sort of closer to politically neutral. But still, it could still be against EWC because you didn't watch the event, right? Okay. Then you're watching the event, which is this year, okay. And you did talk about it. You even now say you talked about it after the event last year. So I'd say you already were over here. But now you're watching the event. Then you take the Saudi bag and then you delete the Giga Chad Chronicler. At that point, absolutely, I agree with them. You are pro-EWC. And as a result, since it's run and funded by the Saudi government, you are pro-Saudi government, which means you are pro what they do, their policies and their ideology. That is just the way it works, my dude. That's what you accepted the money for. This person has nailed you. I don't do politics. Hope this helps, buddy. This guy should have the fucking Giga Chad. This guy is based.
Okay, the next thing people are saying to me a lot, like, Caedrel, you're such a big streamer. You earn loads of money. Why are you taking the bag?
Good question. You're a millionaire, mate.
You don't need the bag, whatever it is. Well, my answer to that, and I
Get
don't know if
ready.
it's easy to answer to it, but I would say I worked my fucking ass off for many years, from being completely failed to now like...
What does that have to do with gay people, mate? I thought you loved them and they rock. What does you working your ass off have to do with gay people? I mean, I guess in a way they're working their ass off and then even sort of losing their head over it, if you know what I mean.
Being able to be in a position where I can talk to the best players in the world and stream the best games. I don't know what my future looks like as a career after League ends or streaming disappears. I have no idea. I don't have anything to go off. Maybe I become a team owner, which would be great, and like can transition into like team side. So people who say you already have enough money or whatever it is, or your stream's already successful, or it is.
Yeah, how dare they?
I feel like I have earned the position to like have my own opinion as to whether I would want to take a bag or not, right?
Yeah, so by loving League of Legends and grinding, guys, and he did, by the way, I actually do feel for him on the thing where he didn't go to uni and he's dropped out of school and stuff. Yeah, it probably means he actually has a pretty bad resume for the real world outside of esports. And that means, yeah, if he doesn't get more millions now, he has no idea where he'll be in a few. You can lose all those millions in a year or two, mate. There's all sorts of shit can happen. So I understand that. That's why you don't you don't play silly fucking games and win silly fucking prizes, pretending to take moral stand and professional stances against people who are fucking killing gay people and then go, oh shit, what's that? Actually, wait a minute, I'm going to need money one day, so I guess I've got to work directly for the ones that kill gay people. That's why you don't do that, guy without a uni degree. You just go, all right, I better shut the fuck up. I'm just a guy. I'm just here fucking hammering nails in me. I don't know. I'm just grafting for my money. I'm not into, that's above my pay grade. I'm not about all that politics and shit. I mean, give me a fucking break. And what does that mean, you worked your ass off? I worked my ass off, so actually I think now I can decide to go back on that. And even though I said I love gay people, maybe I can just work for people who kill them and imprison them. And do women's rights abuses and all that shit. Yeah, maybe I could, fuck it, you know what, maybe I could just do whatever I want. Maybe because I love League and I've worked really hard, I could just reverse my position completely. That's legit, right? By the way, that same logic would justify working with literally anyone who pays a big enough bag. So that would mean if Andrew Tate said he was going to pay you $1 million a day, you'd work with Andrew Tate by that logic. You previously said fuck Andrew Tate, even though you pretend you don't say anything politically outside of League of Legends on Twitter. That would mean, in theory, you would work with the state of Russia if they offered you enough money, mate. Even though they're at the moment in a military conflict with Ukraine, which I'm going to guess you're pretending you support Ukraine, right? That would presumably mean you'd even work with North Korea. The actual sort of, I mean, in theory, they're at a stalemate now, but like the enemies of Faker, although he himself's balls deep with MBS, metaphorically, as I'll show you in a future video. By the way, do I even need to ask, does that mean you'd work with Hamas? Would you work with the Houthis, with Hezbollah? Would you work with the State of Israel? Fuck, would you work with Iran? Bro, just tell me who you wouldn't. Would you work with the United States? If Donald Trump himself asked to work with you, would you work with him? Would you do it? Because at the end of the day, wouldn't all the same logic apply? Wouldn't it be, well, I'm not a political person, I don't know about politics, I just care about video games, this could be really big in the future, they're offering a lot of money, I have to think about my team now. Mate, these are fucking dog shit justifications, and never ever can you just admit, I just don't really actually care about gay people, especially not in the Middle East, and especially not Saudi Arabia. I just said that before as something I just thought idly in my mind, but never had to put to the test. And I just said it on Twitter because I hoped they'd get some likes, and at the time it was kind of the way the wind was blowing. Now the wind's blowing another way, everyone's pretending they didn't say anything, and everyone's working with the Saudis, so why can't I work with them? I've worked a lot in League of Legends, I put a lot of years in, I even sort of gave up my potential career. I need a bag. If everyone else is getting bags, why can't I have a bag? What the fuck, hadn't I own lots of tourneys? That costs money. Why can't I have a bag? I know I've got that giant bag already, but I want Saudi bag. Maybe want Saudi bag. That's you. That's you, mate.
That's why I'm taking the bag, whatever it is.
This is hilarious, by the way, get ready.
I feel like maybe people will realize that I'm talking and
it's just nonsense. You're just talking nonsense, mate. Look how slow he's talking.
To speak a bit, like obviously I'm a little.
It isn't. You just talk from the heart, mate. That's what I do. I just speak off impromptu, off the cuff.
There's a lot of people like on my fucking on me like big time.
Well, wow, that be.
I'm not here to sugarcoat shit, you know. I'm not here to make
lol.
excuses. Hopefully, I'm giving some
lol.
Excuses. But I feel like the way the Twitter community was reacting was really, yeah. I don't mind people having opinions or anything, but like, for example, this tweet.
By the way, how dare you get mad at Twitter? Like, so you want to say things that pretend you support gays and women and all the rest of it and against Andrew Tate and all that shit. Then you want to get a giant bag, more than pro players and Fnatic, who you were mocking earlier, get for doing EWC. And then on top of it, you want still to have the same level of love and adoration and nobody to say maybe you're a piece of shit or a sellout or a liar or a hypocrite. You just want it all, mate. I'll get to that in a minute, but you just want it all and all at the same time. I mean, how dare someone on Twitter criticise you? By the way, you won't even criticise Saudi Arabia killing people who you pretended to stand for or care about or thought it was base to be in favour of. But no, now you're going to get performatively outraged at Twitter, your own fans who took you at your face value in the past and people who thought you were a better human than this. You're going to get mad at them. Well, my lord, can little Lord Faltroy just wind his motherfucking neck in for a second? Homie, just take the L in the bag. Why do you have to take the bag and get the W for shit you've said in the past? And now you get a free W also for taking the bag and going against everything you stood for? This is fucking bullshit, homie.
I have specifically brought up was basically saying something along the lines of he gets to do what he loves and he gets paid. Buddy, have I got a movie for you? So I'm waking up to tweets where I'm being compared to people who created nuclear bombs. And I'm sitting here.
By the way, obviously the person who made that post is a brain-dead cretin who has no insight in the industry and can't even make a cogent point. And that is a shit point. But by the way, before you now make an outrageous thing, I've been compared to people who made nuclear bombs. Right, here's the thing. Oppenheimer himself didn't drop the nuclear bomb. Do you know what he did? Yes, he was actually key in overseeing the project which created the nuclear bomb. And then people, are you ready, Caedrel? In politics, dropped the bomb and killed people. So are you, in any context, Caedrel, participating in a project where it will, like, let's say, bring more viewers and promotion and interest to an event which then potentially funds and is part of the sports washing program of a regime which checks notes, kills people? You know what? It's not even that crazy an analogy. It's not a good one. It's a pretty shittly made point. And that moron, I bet, didn't even understand what he was saying. But you're now going to act like that's crazy, as you are receiving a bag to shut the fuck up about people who mistreat gays and women. That's who you are, homie. But let's get ready for how you get even more mad at this. And this is actually probably the worst part of this clip for me.
You're like,
in about 30 seconds.
What's going on in my life? All I'm doing...
Yeah, what is going on in your life, mate? You changed it all just for this. But what are you doing? Tell me what you're doing.
Is being honest, and I'm taking a bag, changing my stance now that my...
Wait a minute. You're just being honest that you're taking a bag, but you in this video never address all the tweets and stuff I said earlier. You never addressed that. People have said it all the time on your subreddit, by the way. Oh yeah, those are the dead your mods who are deleting and hiding and all. Oh yeah, weird how that works, isn't it? If you don't know the reason to do a mega thread, it's to hide stuff. Because once the mega thread's begun, then if someone comes with new information, it's not going to be the first thing, so it's never going to be at the top of the thread. It's actually a method of hiding shit. But all you're doing is taking a bag and explaining why you're doing it without ever explaining why, right?
My position's changed from just being a streamer to like a team owner.
Oh yeah, and by the way, before he had no stance, which is the same, it's a synonym for position, by the way. He had no stance or position before because he was just a streamer, but now his stance has changed that he's a team owner, and now he has to think that keep your fucking story straight, my dude. Get a fucking press secretary to tell us a line of bullshit, you idiot.
Seeing what's going on in the scene, I even remember saying,
Go on, remember it, homie. Remember it. Spoiler, when he pauses like that, this guy he's like me, he can just talk off the cuff for hours and say all sorts of things. He keeps pausing because he's editing in his own brain, I would speculate, what he's about to say. I even think there's times in this video where he literally is thinking like, I did say it. Well, never mind that. Anyway, and it's like his brain goes, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that. The Saudis, NDA, don't say that, don't say that. I think he's actually self-censoring right now, which is what the purpose of the Saudi bag was for.
It's weird to wake up to all this stuff, right? And,
mate, it's weird to wake up to you working with the Saudis after the things you've said and done.
There's a few more things, right?
Get ready for this bitching session.
I don't want pity or anything, right?
Get ready.
Obviously, I'm getting paid to do this event. I don't want people to like feel like I want pity or anything, right? It's
Get ready. This is mental.
It's a subject, and I'm not very good when it comes to talking about this kind of shit. What I will say is, like, if people are like really upset or disappointed or they're mad or whatever it is about me doing something like this, right? And you're not gonna come back to the stream, then it is what it is. I apologize if you're not gonna come back. I'm sure you'll keep that energy towards everyone else in the entire scene across every game who's also doing this event. You do you. You draw your own line. I'm not here to tell you where your line should be. I feel like everything here should be a line, and wherever you draw it. So yeah. I don't know what people expected when I turned the stream on today.
Right. Did you hear what he just said there, guys? He said, even though it was passive-aggressive as fuck, he claimed that you can just have your own opinion, you can think whatever you want, and if you don't want to follow his stream, it's fine with that, there's no issue. And then he passive-aggressively said that if you do that, though, you don't watch his stream in EWC anymore, that you have to keep that same energy to everyone else in the scene. No, they don't. That is not a literally morally congruent or intellectually consistent statement, Caedrel. You know why they don't have to do that to everyone else in the scene, including me and many others? We didn't flex ridiculous shit about women's rights and gays and then work with and get a giant Saudi bag of over $100,000, allegedly, a day to not talk about the Saudis and their treatment of gay people and their punishment of people in their country. We didn't do that, mate. Even though the people who worked at EWC, some of them have never said anything about that shit. So no, they don't have to keep that same energy to them. How about they keep the energy to you, criticising you based on what you've said and done, my dude, and then they keep a different energy, proportionate and appropriate to what other people have said and done. And by the way, they're also receiving a lot less money than you, my dude. So why the fuck would everyone have to treat everyone the same way you've been treated? And then you're simultaneously gaslighting us at either end of that same statement that you're not telling people what to think. You're fine with them having their own opinion. Everyone can criticise you and obviously not to pity you. This is some so self-pitying, it's fucking pathetic, mate. Are you fucking kidding me? Nah, they don't have to keep that same energy. They just have to do it towards the hypocrites and the fake allies of gay people who don't actually give a shit if they literally live or die. By the way, why elsewhere in this video did he go out of his way to mention that he didn't say I'm not going to Saudi, but he sort of implied it. But all I'm doing is sitting at home, casting it. Why would that be a problem? Why would it be a problem to go there, mate? Exactly. You know why. You know what you are trying to message. Like, guys, look, I'm not even going there. I'm just at home watching the stream. That's not as bad. You're almost inserting in square brackets. I can read between the lines, fuckhead, and show what you actually said.
People have opinions, and I'm not here to tell you what your opinion should be. Hopefully I've kind of clarified a few points. I do feel like some of the things that were being said about me were just straight up lies. Like,
imagine that, someone lying.
It was a very tough position to start addressing them within like 12 hours turnaround. Dropping news at the end of the stream is just a lie. That didn't happen. It's been talked about for like the last 6 months. And even like I said, there's been multiple videos of me reacting to a lot of the things relating to it. And also...
By the way, the idea he calls out liars and keeps returning to this nitpick gotcha of like, I didn't just do it at the end of the stream, but then ignores the enormous dead gay person with no head who's the elephant in the room that would be the bigger issue to address and what you've said in the past. No, let's just ignore all of that stuff. Let's never mention any of the evidence I've shown in this video. In fact, let's just skip forwards a second.
When we spoke about it last year, I basically just said Mickey Mouse format, and I'm too sick to do it.
Right, so they do background checks, guys. I love gay people rock, based, Giga Chad, fucking, whatever his name is, Chronicler. No. All I said last year was Mickey Mouse format, still a Mickey Mouse format now, by the way, and I was just too tired. I was just too tired to do it. I was just too tired. I mean, I could also be honest and say I wasn't offered the same giga bag that I am now. But again, even though I'm pretending to be honest and transparent about why I accepted a bag, actually, I'm just not going to mention that detail. Just going to ignore that part.
Stance has changed with where my position is. And yes, I'm getting paid to do it.
His stance has changed with where his position is. But he never had a stance before, guys. He never talked about politics before. And he's not talking about it now. And he doesn't know about politics, so what is there to talk about? Oh, by the way, my mods are deleting loads of shit. But I didn't tell him to do that. And then I said, actually, just let it stay up. Why would you say any of that stuff, mate, if there was nothing going on? What the fuck are you talking about? Just absolute bollocks, innit? So here's my problem. I'm just going to address this immediately. An angle people keep addressing that, as far as I can tell, even Caedrel doesn't claim, is they'll say, yeah, but he's going to use the money he gets, it's like loads of money, for like Los Ratones to get an LEC spot. As far as I know, him and people like Nemesis have repeatedly messaged that they would never do that, even if they literally got a sack of $20 million tomorrow. No ideas given to you there, Saudis. That wasn't a suggestion. But they've implied they wouldn't do that. They think it's a waste of money because basically you'll never make that money back from the LEC slot. You'll just lose money if you do it. Right, I think the idea that somehow makes it acceptable that they might get Los Ratones into LEC to work with people you all then claim to be against because they kill gay people is a mental justification. Essentially, I'll reframe that question. I'll reframe that sentiment into a question that should hopefully elucidate what I mean. How many dead gay people and women or imprisoned women for decades is an Los Ratones LEC spot worth? Now, my answer would be that literally even one is too many. If even one has that happen to them, it's too many to make that acceptable. By your logic, the answer would be infinity. Look yourself in the mirror and think about what you're justifying when you say that. Now, by the way, there has been generally a lot of stupid shit said by his fans, not the ones critiquing him, fair play to those ones. A lot of people have been desperately defending their guy and changing all their own moral positions. This has been some like, Mr. President, get down, Caedrel, taking the bullet for him. Bloody hell, even LS came and did all that shit. By the way, the same LS that he criticised way back in the video when I pointed out, since now is coming out and defending Caedrel and taking all the fucking heat from him at this point in time. Now everyone's just attacking LS, an actual gay person, by the way. Although I think he describes himself as bisexual. But the joke would be, you would have pretended to have supported him in the past, Caedrel. But if he went to Saudi Arabia and they killed him, would you still work for the event? That's a great question to ask, right? Will anyone ever ask him it? Will that be the next question in an interview with Caedrel? Will it fuck? Then, okay, how about this? These are the same people. I'm not surprised that his fans support him, by the way. These are the same people that supported Reckless then and now and say they don't care now about Saudi Arabia and it's just about video and just watching the tournament. They don't really care about treatment of gays. None of us do. By the way, I've never pretended to. And then then the same people will turn around and call out me or anyone over the most minor infraction or imagined perceived slight and talk about how we're pieces of shit and we need to be called out and we need to be boycotted and we're evil and we're bad, but magically the Saudis are, reckless behaviour isn't, Saudi's treatment isn't, Caedrel isn't, every one of those is great and fine, and why don't we just focus on video games and keep politics out of it? Say the group that witch hunts people constantly on their subreddit. They even witch hunted Caedrel last year when he dared to say that at his award show he made, he didn't vote for T1 as Team of the Year. Now here's an interesting detail for you here, my boy Caedrel. There's a great saying, I've already referenced it earlier. It goes, you can't have your cake and eat it. Now, a lot of people misinterpret this saying because they go, what do you mean? What's the point in having a cake if you can't eat it? Well, first of all, supposedly that saying used to be the other way around. It used to be, you can't eat your cake and have it. What it meant is, if you eat the cake, you no longer have the cake. So if you want to simultaneously have a cake and eat a cake, it's impossible. You have to pick one or the other. Well, you know what? It turns out there's an even better version of that idiom. In Bulgarian, it turns out, my dude, and you're going to love this because it's really on the nose. It goes, look, so you can't have your cake and eat it. In Bulgarian, a more vulgar version is, you can't have both the dick in the ass and the soul in heaven. Now, Caedrel, I think this is a really on-point angle for this for you, my dude. People can't have dicks in their ass. Saudi dicks, they can't have dicks in general if they're in Saudi. And also get into heaven, be a virtuous person that would then get into heaven and be rewarded with a wonderful afterlife. You're sort of choosing, in this analogy, one or the other, aren't you? You either choose heaven, you maybe haven't done that here, or you choose the dick in the ass, don't you? Pretty good one, innit, mate? Oh, and by the way, if you're wondering, what's the issue, though? Why can't he have his cake and eat it? Because when you make it about your support for gays or women and that you're against the shit they do in Saudi Arabia, killing people, beheading them, women activists in prison for years and years. In fact, you know what? Let me just show you. Capital punishment in Saudi Arabia. Because if you don't know, the clever thing about Saudi Arabia is they have their own policies and claim to do things to the West. But then they have these smaller little courts using Sharia law that can decide their own things on the outskirts, and all sorts of shit can happen in their country. And it's just, they turn a blind eye to it. Let me just scroll down a second. Methods of execution. By the way, the main method of execution is beheading. I think I told you that already. Beheadings. Capital offences. Let's have a look at some capital offences here. Adultery. Unmarried, adultery is when you cheat on your wife or husband. Unmarried adulterers can be sentenced to 100 lashes. Married ones can be sentenced to stoning. Guys, I wouldn't recommend looking at a video, but look up what stoning is. Essentially, you dig a hole in the ground, you put the person in there, often tied up, so only their head shows over the top of the ground, and then a group of people gather round and throw big rocks at the person's head, in some cases till they're dead. Now imagine not just that being done to someone for these reasons, but imagine that actually being done and how long it would take you to die, and the misery, the anguish and the suffering of how you would die if you did that. Do you know what? Yeah, I do think some of these people actually maybe aren't good people. And I think if I'd flex that I care about not even moral sins necessarily like this, although it depends what your religious definition is there, I think I'd probably have a problem working with them. That's just me, innit? So you know that whole, yeah, but the money is so much. Doesn't matter, mate. They're killing people and stealing them, beheading them. Yeah, but I need the money. Again, they're killing and beheading people and you have loads of money. But it's a big tournament. It's part of the scene now. They're killing and beheading people. But I'm an owner now. You said you care about gay people and they rock. Very much they rock in that case. But they're improving and progressing. Not enough, mate. They're still doing those things you care about. These angles and justifications do not work. They don't work. And so let me just wrap this video by saying this. There's a lesson here about not virtue signalling when it seems super low cost, but one day could be very high cost to you and to others. Oh, you thought it was just free PR and praise with zero downside? If that's true, you thought that, then you were never saying anything of value and you were never standing for anyone in any meaningful way. And because there was no cost, it meant nothing. If there's no cost or no risk, what virtue is there to be gained from it? Why are we considering you virtuous? Because do you know what the cost can be? This is what you're whining about and upset about. It can be reputational damage. People might think you're a piece of shit, mate. It might even be that you open the stream and get all these messages and have all these people talking and it feels unfair. You get anxiety. Imagine that, reckless, being a piece of shit to people. They're feeling anxiety, my dude. So you might feel anxiety. You might feel stressed. You might even, and this is tragic, but it can happen, you might even have fucking suicidal ideation because of this, because you can't handle the stress. And for what? Just so that you could go and flex online, pretend you cared and supported people you never gave a shit about. I'll tell you a little lesson that everyone hasn't learned about this whole topic still. Nobody, everyone commenting and even dissing Caedrel who watches my video or dissed him on his subreddit and going, he's a sellout. Nobody actually knows what they stand for in this particular context until they've had the offer, the real offer, and they've had the chance to say no. Until you've actually said no in real life, you only think you know what you'd do. You only imagine that you could turn down this amount, or you'd turn it down from this person, or you'd say no to this event, or I'd do it. That's all just you and your fantasy. That's what Caedrel thought a year or two ago, boys. It's like the fucking One Ring in the Lord of the Rings. It's not until the character is actually tempted with it that he knows what his real position is. So Boromir, famously, he thought, we should work with the Saudis, arse-boiled bullshit. Oh, sorry, Arshgoyle. He was on some, we should use the weapon of the enemy against them. Then you had Aragorn. No, you keep that. Don't give that to me. That's not for me, mate. Galadriel, if you give that to me, I'd go power mad. And then I'd be like, yeah, I'd be a kinder ruler, but I'd be a dark queen. Nobody wanted the ring, right? They all understood to turn it down. They all understood it wasn't the right thing for them. That it was a sacred, virtuous quest to carry that ring and be careful about what you did it and whose hands it fell into. So I actually do hope, genuinely, I said it earlier, I actually do still care about Caedrel. I do like him on some level. I think he can turn the corner. I think he's even battling himself when he's trying to talk there. I actually hope that he will think better as a result of this experience. Not that he won't work in the EWC. That's not my concern, mate. I'm not anti-Saudi in that sense. But I'll tell you what, I really do hope you won't do stupid virtue signalling. I hope you will just stick to your principles now and shut the fuck up about what you don't know about and don't care about and won't take a stand for and just talk about bloody video games, what you're actually really good at, mate. And I think he has actually shown a few glimmers that there's a bit of regret there or remorse about how he's made. He didn't dare to actually admit it, so don't give him credit for that. But I think there's still a guy in there. I don't think he's a total sellout or a hack or he's purely cynical and only cares about the money. I don't think he would do that stream if he only cared about the money. And by the way, one final lesson. Don't ever fuck with Thorin when there's receipts out there on the internet, bitch.
I don't forget the people that support me. And in the case of this video, that would be Matt Pugnatio, Rajcula, Jasun, Jensen Goh, Nicky, Tosh, Tooorin, and you know who I'm always going to give the biggest shout out to, my boy Jerky's Minion. Do you want to ask a question for my video AMA? Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you want to find out who the next guest is on one of my interviews that I've already recorded but not yet released. Or maybe you want to take part in one of those fabled long-form discussions where you get to decide the topics. Well, if any of those perks or others tickle your fancy, simply click on the Patreon link in the description box below and put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today.